Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome to the Schober Realty Centre. I'm here for Arsenal's open training ahead of tomorrow night's Champions League game against Atalanta. We'll see who's here, probably more importantly, who is not here. Is there any sign of Martin Odegaard, Zinchenko, Calafiori? Going to head over to the training pitches very, very soon and find out.
Yeah, it's like Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Just maybe some stronger between.
Yeah.
But he obviously had natural.
He should be
Yeah. I think obviously like I just pinged him into him, he just clapped on him.
Right, so back in the car, having spent the last 20 minutes or so over on the training pitches here at the Schober Realty Centre, London Colney, of course. And the big news then that we're going to speak about in today's show is the latest injury news ahead of that game tomorrow against Atalanta in the Champions League. Arsenal will be flying out about 3:30 p.m. later today, heading over to Bergamo for that game. Mikel Arteta will be speaking at that press conference tonight, where we're going to get the very latest from him. But the big news from here is that Riccardo Calafiori is back. He was training out there today on the pitch, which is obviously very, very good news for Arsenal. I haven't had him since he picked up that injury playing for Italy in the international break. Missed the game against Spurs, obviously, so he is available today. There is no Zinchenko though. He was not training with that calf injury that saw him miss the game against Spurs at the weekend. Understand that injury was picked up on international duty with Ukraine. He reported back to Arsenal having picked up that injury. So no Zinchenko, but more importantly, well, I say more importantly, no disrespect to Alexander Zinchenko, of course, but certainly the biggest news that there is no Martin Odegaard. He was not out there training today as expected. Obviously, he did miss the game against Spurs. Mikel, before that game against Spurs, was kind of playing a bit of a game, obviously, of Willie, he wouldn't rule him out of that game. I think we all knew it wasn't going to happen. And I wasn't expecting to see him when I turned up here at training today. And yeah, so I'm not overly surprised that he didn't come out with the rest of the squad. And I think we'll be hearing from Mikel Arteta a little bit later on today. Obviously, he's going to get questions fired at him when he gets to Italy about the extent of this Odegaard injury, which is a bit of a mystery at the moment. Of course, no one has really said anything from Arsenal. We've had all the conspiracy theories of the team squad photo, which was taken yesterday at Colney, and we saw Odegaard there, but we saw a ball conveniently placed right in front of that left foot of his, that left angle of his, so we couldn't see anything on there. Was he wearing a boot? Was he not wearing a boot? All the conspiracy theories have been raging, and I'm sure Arsenal are aware of that. And I think today we'll probably hear from Mikel Arteta, who's going to have to answer questions on it, and we'll get the very latest from him on the extent of Odegaard, maybe how long he is going to be out for with that issue he picked up playing against Austria for Norway during the international break. So no Odegaard, none of the other injured players returned out there at the training pitch today. So no Kieran Tierney, of course, no Tomiyasu, no Mikel Merino. Declan Rice obviously is back available again for Arsenal, which is a big boost. I mean, he wouldn't have missed the Champions League anyway because it was a Premier League suspension, but he was out there. He's going to be available tomorrow. I imagine Declan will come in for the game as well. So that's the latest in terms of the Arsenal team news here from London Colney. As I said, the squad flying out a little bit later on today. They're just having their session now. We got to see the first sort of 20 minutes of it, which is just basically them coming out, doing a few rondos, doing the warm-up, doing their warm-up, and then once the cameras have been turned off and we've been sent back marching to our cars here in the car park, then the actual proper training session will begin. They'll go through that session, get it finished, they'll have some lunch, get themselves ready, then they get picked up, taken to the airport and flying out to Bergamo. I think the press conference tonight is going to be about 7:30 p.m. Obviously that will be covered live on arsenal.com as well. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what Mikel has to say ahead of that game, because it's going to be big news. I think the press conference is certainly, it feels like the timing will be right to hear about what's going on exactly with the Arsenal captain. So Ricardo Calafiori being back is obviously big news for Arsenal, and really good news at a time when he is very much needed with so many players out. When I look at this game tomorrow night and I look at what changes could be made, I think there will be some changes, but it's got to be said, this is still a Champions League game. It's the first game of the new Champions League format. You want to try and get off to as strong as start as possible. You don't want to be playing catch up, so you're not going to be treating this like a Carabao Cup game, for example. I've seen people saying, I'll rest everyone ahead of game against Man City, and I can kind of understand that stance a little bit, but as I said, this is a big Champions League game, and this is Mikel Arteta. He won't be making huge changes to this. 3, maybe 4 maximum, I think, for this game. But I do think having Calafiori back is a very good option, because you know, Jurgen Timber was fantastic against Tottenham. It was his best performance in Arsenal shirt. I mean, there hasn't been too many of those performances, obviously because of the injury, but he was very good. But it was his first game. It was his first full 90 minutes in competitive action since signing for Arsenal because of that injury. So I think you just tread a little bit carefully with him. And so it wouldn't surprise me if Timber makes way this week in preparation for this weekend's game, when I fully expect him to start against Manchester City. So, you know, potentially you've got Calafiori now as another option to play left back. I still think probably Kivior is the more likely option right now, just because Calafiori is only just coming back from the injury, but you never know. It's not like Calafiori's fitness would have dropped off too much, because he'd been playing fairly regularly before he picked up that injury. He's only missed 1 game, so he could come straight into the starting 11, and it is a really good option for Mikel Arteta to have. So I think that's going to be one of the potential changes that he could make for this game. Obviously, Thomas Partey is another one, I think, where his fitness levels need to be taken into account. He played both games for Ghana, full 90 minutes for Ghana during the international break, flew back, played the full 90 minutes in the North London derby. You know, history suggests you've got to tread carefully with Thomas Partey and those thighs. And so do you rest Partey for this game? I would suggest yes. Declan Rice is back, obviously, which is a big boost. I mean, he would have been available anyway, like I said, because it was just a Premier League suspension, but he is back available, and I expect him to start this game. And so you take out one of Jorginho or Thomas Partey, I think. And personally, for me, I think Partey will play at the Etihad. And so I would expect Jorginho maybe to stay in the team for this game tomorrow night. Partey getting a little bit of a rest in preparation for the game at the Etihad, and you just bring Declan Rice back in and play him alongside probably Kai Havertz in that midfield role. Havertz will be replacing, obviously, the injured Martin Odegaard. Bukayo Saka, I should have mentioned, sorry, he is back out there. Obviously, he limped off against Spurs, which was a little bit worrying. But the initial signs were, and the initial messages we were given after the Spurs game, was that it looked like it was only cramp and nothing more serious than that. And clearly that was correct, because Saka was out there taking a full part in the session, certainly what I saw anyway. And I imagine he would have been taking a full part in the session after we got kicked out. So Saka will be travelling. Do you still rest Bukayo Saka for this game in preparation for the Man City game? I mean, personally, I would think probably yes, but this is Mikel Arteta and this is Bukayo Saka, and we all know past history suggests that if Saka's fit or deemed fit, then Saka plays in the big games. And this is a big game for Arsenal, make no mistake about it. So whether that is one of the changes or not, I think it's certainly up for debate. I think Gabriel Jesus, one way or the other, will play this game, whether that be as a striker, whether that be potentially replacing Bukayo Saka on the right-hand side. We'll wait and see. But Jesus, I think, probably starts this one. I would say as a striker, because Kai Havertz is probably going to have to drop back into the midfield role, and then maybe that allows you to play Trossard on the left, rest Gabriel Martinelli. You know, there are options. Having Jesus back, having Declan Rice back, and having Calafiori back is definitely a big boost for Arsenal in terms of the options, in terms of what Mikel Arteta is going to be able to do and how he balances his squad. You know, this is such a demanding week, starting with what happened against Spurs on Sunday, and then having to do this, travel to Atalanta, play on a Thursday night, come back, and then play on the Sunday in a game as the magnitude of the Manchester City game. It's a big ask for this squad that's a stretch squad because of the injuries, because of the players missing, and you do have to take that into account, and I think he will. But as I said, I imagine it'll probably be 3 or 4 changes. I'll sit down tomorrow, do my predicted 11 in tomorrow's show. Let me know your thoughts in terms of who you think should be starting this game. You want to get involved in that preview show that I'll do in the morning tomorrow. Let me know your thoughts, starting 11, who should be rested, who shouldn't be rested. I'll pull some of them together, of course, and get them included in the show. Right, elsewhere, before I head off back onto the joys of the M25 and try and get myself home, I wanted to have a say, I don't know if you saw it or not, you probably didn't, you're probably watching the Champions League and all the goals and stuff, but Howard Webb and his ridiculous propaganda show on Sky Sports was on last night, and Howard Webb talked through the Declan Rice incident, and it was the usual stuff. They played the mic'd up version of what you could hear Chris Kavanagh saying when he sent off Declan Rice, and he was apologising almost to Declan Rice, and look, I don't like it, you've given me no choice, you had to do it, you kicked the ball away, blah 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 blah. And then Howard Webb was on there talking to Michael Owen, and of course said, yeah, he had no choice, it was the right decision, Declan gave him no other choice. But then in the same breath, they then showed the João Pedro incident in the first half, kicking it away, and Howard Webb admitted that he should have got a yellow card and the referee got it wrong. And which just makes me laugh, because it's like, well, then clearly he had a choice. Kavanagh had a choice in that first half with João Pedro, and he chose not to do what he should have done. So he had a choice, which makes the whole statement of he didn't have a choice against Declan Rice completely false, because clearly he did, and he just showed. But the choice he made was to book him and it was a complete opposite of the decision he made in the first half. It's just such rubbish. Honestly, that show, it just does my head in. It is just an absolute PR exercise. It is so worthless. I saw Tim Stillman, obviously a big Arsenal commentator on Twitter, and he called it almost downright offensive, that programme now. And the more you watch it and the more you see the clips that they pick and choose and what audio they choose to show, like they didn't show the audio from the João Pedro incident, they showed a replay of the actual incident, but they didn't share the audio of what the referees and the officials were saying to each other, you know, in terms of why that wasn't a yellow card, or what Chris Kavanagh said when he kicked the ball away. You know, what did he say? You know, they just pick and choose it all, and it just absolutely does my head in. Honestly, it really, really does. I thought it was so ridiculous. It just made me more angry. And I know that incident's been and gone now, and it's almost like not worth talking about. But yeah, it just really, really did wind me up, I have to say. So elsewhere, I mean, obviously I've been traveling, so there's not much else that I can talk about at the moment. It's a little bit of a different video today because I'm doing this show, so I haven't got any of your comments or anything to share as always, but I will do that, I promise, in tomorrow's show as well. I might well be, and I'm not sure yet, I might be sitting down with James Bench later today when I get home to do Inside Arsenal Extra Time, but I don't know. It is a Champions League night tonight, and he's got work and stuff doing the Champions League, so it might not fit. We might have to do this show on Friday, I'm not sure. So I wouldn't say right now to send your questions in for Inside Arsenal Extra Time, because if you do, we might not get to record the show. So don't worry about that, but I will be back tomorrow, as I said, to do a big preview show for the game where we're back to normal, and I'll be sharing all of your comments as usual. But the big news here from London Colney: no Martin Odegaard, he's still injured. No Zinchenko, he's still injured. Saka is fine, he's there, he's travelling with the squad. Ricardo Calafiori is back from injury and is also travelling from the squad. So from London Colney, see you later, speak to you soon. Have a great day.